Good afternoon or morning, wherever you are joining us from, and welcome to our Webster.Careers webinar, Elevating Your Personal Brand Online, featuring Webster University alumni Lisa Camp and Madison Smith. I am your host and moderator for today's conversation, John Link, Director of Webster University's Career Planning and Development Center. I'm very excited about today's conversation. Elevating your personal brand online is an opportunity to really showcase some of the most amazing accomplishments that you have as a professional, and how you're able to convey that messaging to your intended audience. So our panelists today are going to be signature in helping us with some perspective on how you can really take that online brand to the next level, most notably through LinkedIn, as LinkedIn is the premier networking platform that we see most professionals across nearly every industry using to articulate their skills, interests, qualifications, their academic achievements, and their aspirations to their intended network. So this is a great opportunity for us to engage with these young professionals and hear what amazing things they're doing and any perspective that they have on the questions today. So the first thing that I wanted to do, and I'll ask Lisa first, and then I'll move on and ask Madison her perspective about this as well, is what is personal branding? Lisa, what do we mean when we talk about crafting a personal brand?
Yes, so your personal brand is really what you're going to promote and what differentiates you from others. So, when someone looks at your profile on any social media platform, you want people to, think and look and see that every inch of your profile is telling a story. Now, what you want that story to convey is up to you. But from your profile picture to your banner to the things that you post and the things that you choose to share and comment on, it's really showcasing and telling the world this is who you are, this is what you stand for, and really your unique combination of skills and things you have to put forth into the universe.
Yeah, Lisa, I think that's a really good perspective and take on what personal branding is and how that can be represented across your online presence, but also even some of those physical, tangible documents that you may bring to an interview for in-person interviews. We know that in this day and age, it's becoming more common practice to have virtual interviews, at least as an initial starting place in the hiring process. So thanks. Madison, personal branding, what is it? What does it include? What does it not include? I think that's also, I like non-examples too.
Yeah. Yeah, I was about to say, dang, Lisa, she went first because, man, she said it so well. But as far as something that it doesn't include, and me coming from an industry that it is regulated on how much we can do on LinkedIn and social media, and being able to differentiate yourself, is that sometimes we get lost in the company message, right? So as for me personally, I'm a financial advisor. It's what I do, but it's not who I am. And there's millions of financial advisors out there, but there's only one Maddie Smith. So really, honestly, taking that to heart and looking at yourself as a unique person is going to affect your personal brand. Your personal brand, like I said, it's not your company. And I think that is the mistake a lot of people get into, is that they take what's given to them and they don't try and make it their own. If you're sitting there and you're thinking, yeah, I don't feel like my personal brand is my own, that's where you start. That's the initial problem to explore. So that's the only tidbit that I would season to Lisa's already delicious meal that she just said.
Yeah, and I like the way that you framed that differentiation between yourself as a professional and the company that you are working for. And I think that there are some congruencies between how you want to be represented as a professional and as an ambassador of your company or organization, but you also want to stand out as somebody who is individualized autonomous, somebody that is standing on their own accolades individually, by name. So I like how you frame that in a way that really conveys how we want to be perceived by our audience. And sometimes that takes a lot of hard work and discipline as we look at personal branding being a lifelong, career-long, organic process. And one thing that I recalled when I was looking at some of my previous activities with students is just your reputation overall and your calling card and how important your name is within the industry or within the area that you are working. And when you are focusing on preparing any of the academic experience, skill, interest, any of those areas that you want to convey to an audience, you have to begin thinking about what you want people to know you for, what you want to be known as a subject matter expert in and go-to in, and your credibility of a young professional or a professional is just so important when you're putting information out there about yourself. So Lisa, your reputation and thinking about how important it is, what are some things that you think could be damaging to someone's personal brand that may tarnish their reputation, professionally at least? Or things they may want to steer clear from?
So I would say, if you're working for an organization, keep in mind their core values and things they are involved in, and the do's and don'ts, per se, of the organization, and really apply that to your personal brand as well. So if you're working for a corporation, you don't want to necessarily put forth things that might be damaging for yourself, but also for the organization you work for. So keep in mind those two things do align in some way, and you want to be, you're a representative of that brand as well as your own brand. So no, don't put forth anything that might be too controversial that you don't necessarily have a particular stance in, or your organization doesn't. You want to be really strategic in how you put forth things that might be, damaging, like pictures or sharing posts and all that sort of thing.
So Madison, what I'm getting from Lisa's perspective on that is that we should be really censoring, or at least double checking anything that we're sharing or any privacy settings that we are in control of on any of our social media platforms. We need to be aware of anything that we post and aware of who can potentially see this. Is that kind of what you're getting from this too, Madison?
Oh, most definitely. I will say I am very active on the security on my social media. So I will scrub. I don't let anyone tag me in anything that I don't know what it is and I don't approve it first. And same thing, I get alerts when people tag my name or anything in whatever they post. And that's just good practice. It seems overwhelming at first and annoying, but once you start doing it, it's like it's your reputation. It's your baby, and you wouldn't leave your baby unattended. So
yeah, definitely. That's a good way to frame that. And thinking specifically about how important the information that you are including about yourself, and then also the information that you share or comment on, brings this to my mind. Do people want to listen to what you have to say, or do people want to read your perspective on something? So credibility and reputation building is a part of that. Do you want people to pause after you've shared something on LinkedIn, for instance, about maybe trends within your industry, or maybe you are currently recruiting or have an opening in your location where you are wanting to attract candidates to apply for that position? Do people want to work with you? Do people want to be associated with the company that you are representing, if that's the kind of role that you're in? So I think there's a lot that goes into that credibility as a professional. Your reputation is something that is built and built and built positively over the duration of your experience online, but also, you know, in the real world when you're interacting with people, you want that conversation to also, or that brand to kind of feed over into some of those additional areas, like how are you networking with people back and forth? What's your networking approach? Because that's part of your personal brand. How are you emailing and following up with people about opportunities that you may be interested in or can share perspective about? That's a part of your personal brand. So I think all of these perspectives really help frame what we need to be considerate of when we look at how we are perceived and what we know and how well we know it. Now, we know that there are millions and millions and millions of users across multiple social media platforms, and that it can be definitely a challenge to create an experience for an audience who we are trying to get some traction from, a memorable experience, if you will. What are some strategies that one can stand out in a crowded pool of many like-minded professionals? Lisa, how would you stand out if you were, say, gearing up for a hiring process and you want to be differentiated in a world where we know there's millions of people that share similar skills and interests that you do?
I would say being as authentic and real as I can be, sharing my stories, sharing my experiences. You can often find, you know, shared experiences or commonalities with people, and that creates a bond. And then people want to talk to you more, or, you know, I always say the real connection happens in the messages, in the DMs, in the comments, or, you know, just reaching out to someone. It truly does, because you can have millions of people or thousands of people following you or interacting with your stuff, but the true engagement and connection comes then. So if that's on LinkedIn, whether that's reaching out to a potential employer or a person that you have in your network who works for them, perhaps, you know, someone who is a classmate, you know, who works at an organization you like to work with, then I would message them, reach out to them, ask them, you know, hey, I'm a recent grad. I'd like to, you know, this is an area I'm interested in, and I want to know how you got to where you are and what you're doing, and I'd love to chat with you. Start there.
Yeah, Lisa, I think that's a good point. And what I'm getting from that is to be authentic and to be personable and relatable to your intended audience, especially on LinkedIn. You can't treat LinkedIn as in the same way that you would prepare a targeted resume for a job. It has to be more personable to articulate who you are, what you do, and why you do it, sharing your story and being very intentional about how that story is crafted, and how it's received is going to depend on how much energy we are putting into that process. So that's definitely a good way of framing how we want to be our most authentic version of ourselves professionally, especially given that we know there are opportunities to always network your way into jobs or be in somebody's network where we may be considered for an opportunity that is aligned to our skills, our interests, our work values, how that's communicated across our personal branding is going to definitely be resonating with those who may see us as that professional for that opportunity. And what I wanted to ask Madison is, one thing that I noticed recently when reviewing a lot of different LinkedIn profiles is that there's this trend. People are moving in the direction of using first person pronouns, sharing their personal experiences professionally in LinkedIn, articulating exactly what they do in a way that they can't in a resume. Have you noticed this, or is this kind of how you frame out some of your experiences that you share through these networking platforms?
So let me just understand the question. You're saying that you've noticed some people sharing their personal beliefs professionally through LinkedIn?
No, yeah, I did not ask that very well because it's definitely an area of opportunity for myself to edit my own LinkedIn profile. So I've noticed that some people are sharing, instead of a bullet point that they may have had included on their resume, they're crafting that and saying, I am responsible for, or I do this at this company, this is how I do it, and this is how it is effective. Have you noticed a trend where people are being more intentional about showing how they are effective at the work they're doing and being very clear about what value proposition they bring to the table?
Oh, yes. To answer you that question, and I'll be very honest, when I look on LinkedIn and I see a resume and someone posts their resume, I'm always like, and I don't really look at it. But the cool thing with LinkedIn and that you get people is exactly what you said. Someone will say, I am really good at managing people and this is my favorite story. And of course, me being me, I'm like, ooh, what's the story? And I want to lead, and I actually do read that long paragraph because one, you can get more about who they are, the personality of it. And then if you get to the point where people do even read the first 3 or 5 sentences, you always see those people have so many comments because someone's like, oh my goodness, this happened to me. Oh my goodness, I understand. I'm a manager too. I do this. I need this. And you get more engagement that way. And it's a professional way to show your personality and expand a little bit on your skills, almost like if you were in an interview already. So no, that's definitely a change I really like seeing versus just the bullet point of I manage people.
Yeah, and I think that when we're trying to be intentional about how we're communicating our effectiveness in our areas that we want to be recognized or as subject matter experts for, it's just really important that we have those stories that we can share about how we do it. Maybe what our theory is behind it, if there's application of that theory to our approach to managing people, as you kind of gave that example and wanted to learn more about somebody because that's kind of what they were leading with, then that's going to give me a little bit more of an idea of how that will transfer maybe into my company or organization, especially if I'm recruiting for a position. So definitely I like how you framed that, and that perspective I think is really important when you're looking through thousands of LinkedIn profiles, and standing out is sometimes extremely challenging. So yeah, I think that's a really good way to share that perspective. Now, in order for us to really communicate who we are professionally, we really need to be clear about who we are, and knowing our strengths, our skills, our interests, our values, and how that is conveyed is something that we are definitely in control of. How important is How important are these areas, Lisa, when you're looking at editing or auditing your social media, more professionally centric profiles, your skills, your interests, your strengths, and your values?
It's super important. And what I like to do is I like to look at my profile and think, what do I want people to think when they view my profile? And it can be something super simple. Like I want them to see that I'm organized, right? So then maybe I'll outline my profile in a really organized fashion. Or I want people to see I'm creative and I can do some really great video work. So then I'm gonna outline my work maybe in a video format and put it on my profile to go alongside with the typical layout for LinkedIn. You can have fun and show off your skills in a unique way, and that only will draw more attention, and then people are seeing that you can do what you say. You're providing proof. So I think any way that you can do that and show and provide value is great.
Yeah, and what I'm getting from that too is when we are, the way we are received is only going to be received in the way that we are creating that story of our professional selves. if we know who we are professionally and we can articulate that through any of the fill-in sections of our digital profiles, through other modalities of communicating our personal brand, such as, we do want our personal use of other social media platforms to maybe be a little bit more interests outside of work sometimes, showcasing some of those interests or capturing some of those moments of ourselves. But we know that we are in control of how others can be perceiving us just by having a good understanding of our own interests, skills, strengths, and values, and how we can really maximize what those strengths are, so people know exactly who we are. There is no question about what we bring to the table. Now, Madison, when we talk about strengthening someone's personal brand, what maybe should they begin auditing if they're looking at a way to begin seeing or assessing what they want to improve upon or what they're lacking?
So I would say the first thing, and some people might say it's superficial, but I'm going to say it anyway, is your headshot, the profile picture. That is the first thing people see. So if I'm seeing selfies, if I'm seeing bathroom mirrors, if I'm seeing just anything you basically took on a cell phone, maybe good for Facebook, Instagram, not necessarily for LinkedIn, which is professional networking. So that's the first thing. And like I said, it's superficial. That's the first thing that you're going to see. But the second easiest thing to change is your responses, your comments to people. LinkedIn, they do have those handy dandy little things where they can say, congratulations, and you can just click the button and it responds and everything like that. But when you look at the comments and you see 27 bland congratulations because other people clicked that button, you're not going to stand out. But if you take the time, 30 seconds, to just craft a unique message saying, congratulations, I know you've been working really hard for this. I would love to catch up, and so we can talk about your new role. Huge difference. Huge difference. And just doing those small little initial changes is going to increase your engagement so much, and how many people comment on your things and do the same thing. So that would be my two big changes if you're going to start small and work your way big, that I would do.
Oh, nice. And I have a list of 9 things, and you just kind of covered 2 of them after the continued perspective on, especially from Lisa, because Lisa has some really cool branding elements that she's included on her personal website as well as across her social media platforms. But Lisa, these are 4 areas that I really wanted to focus on as far as digital platforms that could be used to articulate who we are professionally. And there are some additional things that I originally had on this list. I actually had TikTok on there because I've noticed, and let me be defensive of that. So, and then I'll tell you why I took it off. I follow a lot of educators on TikTok and how they employ different strategies and many videos of those strategies in play. Yes, there's a humor take on it because engagement is a huge component to that. But obviously, not every single one of our career areas would allow that sort of creativity in how we're communicating who we are professionally. That's why I took it down. But and would never encourage somebody to get onto a platform and begin creating videos if that's something that is completely outside of their comfort zone or not even going to be a central component to their personal brand. However, I think YouTube is an opportunity if you have tutorials or if you're publishing any content, sharing any content that could reinforce some of the key things that you are including within your personal brand. That obviously could be one of the added platforms that I would include here. But LinkedIn leading as the premier networking platform for industry professionals, Facebook, Twitter, and then personal websites. Lisa, of those four there, what would you say besides, actually, let me limit that and take LinkedIn away. Which one would be the biggest opportunity for someone to strengthen their overall their overall brand, if you will, where they can include more information or build content that would be most conducive for their specific career goals?
Absolutely, without a doubt, a personal website. With your personal website, it one provides credibility. You have a website where people can go and it's your digital home where you can share, you can put your resume on there, you can put your skill sets, you can put everything that you might put on Facebook or Twitter on your website in one location for people, employers, friends to find. And you can also showcase your skills a little bit more and go more in depth, really, is what the personal website allows you to do.
Yeah, Lisa, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because one of the areas that I was reluctant in personally to create was a personal website. And then this past year, when social distancing really challenged us to be innovative and things to do in our downtime, I was excited enough to and motivated enough to create a personal website about all of my educational experiences and kind of who I am as an educator, as a K-12 educator, as a professor, as a director, and what my aspirations are. And I thought that that was a good use of my flexibility of my time. But you're right in that it goes the way I'm reflecting on what you just said and analyzing my LinkedIn profile, my other social media profiles as well, but LinkedIn in particular, and my approach to preparing a personal website was I was able to go into much more depth, provide more flexibility in how I upload different components of how I connect information to students through presentations, recorded videos. There's examples of lesson activities that I've had in K-12 as well as in higher education. So yeah, it gives my audience maybe a little bit more information about who I am professionally, but also I don't feel restricted within these input sections of a predetermined who I am section of LinkedIn or Facebook or in the limited amount of characters that you can put in your bio in
Exactly.
Twitter. So yeah, I'm glad that that was part of what you would reinforce. And also, as we move into LinkedIn and just focusing on these optimal areas for profile success, we want to kind of really focus in on some of the key areas that Madison started sharing, using that photo and how you're engaging through comments and interacting with any sharing information is something that really is going to take a lot of effort and work. Madison, it sounded like that's where you were getting at, that this should not be something that we look at as a one and done, don't have to go back to it, immediately. This sounds like it's going to take a lot of work. So where do you begin? I know you said the first thing you would start looking at would be your photo, but this just sounds exhausting. It sounds like a lot of work, but is it, or am I kind of overreacting to that?
Yeah. So, I mean, as far as just where to start, I would really encourage everyone to go to someone that's not in your industry. So for me personally, it'd be someone in the creative sphere because, finance creatives were a little bit different, right? But
Right.
the whole point is almost having them interview you and have them ask questions. What do you do? What do you love about your job? And then speak it and then have them regurgitate it to you. Because sometimes when you're speaking about your passion, certain things come out, right? And
Right.
certain words get you excited. And actually bouncing those ideas off someone so you can understand, okay, what am I saying and what are people hearing? And then when you go back and you're trying to make your LinkedIn and you already have all those bullet points, it's a lot easier, right? So,
Right. Right. And Madison, what really got me excited about what you shared is something that I haven't done in a long time, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners could probably use this strategy in learning how some of their some of those in their professional network receive them. Maybe asking them, what are some of my perceived strengths um, that I bring to the table? What are some of the key skills that you say I have that maybe differentiate myself from others in my industry? And then also taking a peek at other professional profiles in other industries gives you an idea of how you're able to really, not be in such a tunnel vision of those like-minded professionals, because you're probably going to see some similarities in the language and skills and strengths. But also, if you're looking at other profiles outside of your primary industry, you're probably going to get a little bit more of an idea of how you can maybe share some creativity in such a platform that doesn't really trigger as much creativity with those restricted fill-in sections, right? Yeah, so I think there's a lot of opportunity there in those two strategies. Now, one opportunity that I struggle with, and if you go to my LinkedIn profile right now, my LinkedIn headline, I've customized it. I've switched it back to my job title and employer. I've customized it again, and then I'll switch it back. So what will be a good strategy to create a customized headline so that you can really, elevate your profile if recruiters or other people are scanning through LinkedIn profiles and you want them to stop at your profile? What's a headline that maybe would grab your attention, Lisa?
Uh-oh.
So one of the areas, and I think Lisa's audio just went out, but when she returns, I'll get back to her. But one of the key areas that I noticed that some of my colleagues have done in roles outside of Webster have articulated how they do what they do or why they do what they do. So one thing that I noticed recently was a colleague had put that they are responsible, but they didn't say the word responsible. They switched out some of the general words that you see used so regularly, and input different kinds of language that really resonated with me to pause and see how they were able to be more, I don't want to say original because it's not like they invented a word, but they were able to really stand out, pause, allow an audience to kind of trigger what maybe they are specifically wanting them to understand about their current role or what they kind of do in as far as impact. So Madison, what advice would you have? I know there's two on the screen: feature skills that set you apart and highlighting your strengths and your aspirations. But what are some additional ways that you can see customizing a headline for a LinkedIn profile?
Yeah. So, and I mean, I guess this can be advice for you too, John, but with custom headlines, I know I regurgitated on the last one and I keep on regurgitating it on this one, is that your job title is what you do. It's not who you are, right? Because I've had career counselors before. Have I stayed in touch with them like I stayed in touch with you? No, right? And
Yeah.
it's the same thing of what do you do? What do you love to do? I know I can tell you right off that if you do not have empathetic listener on your custom headline, John, you need to. If you do not have connector, then you need to. I have not had a counselor who has tried to connect me with so many other people. So taking those feature skills that you said set you apart and putting that in your headline. Again, I'm so jealous of creatives, but in a fun, creative way, that's where you start and who you are as a person. If I could put sassy in my custom headline, I best believe I would. So that's where I would say is the basics. Again, just going back to saying, okay, so what do I love about my job? Because my job is just a title, but I bring something unique to it.
And Madison, one of the things that I wrote down, and it caused me to think like, well, how does one showcase this as personality? And when you said sassy, I thought personality, but that can be inferred from your photo, as you mentioned earlier, but also in your headline. It's really important that you're able to kind of really use some of those key words that you may have put in your summary in your LinkedIn profile, or even in some of the language that you use in the descriptors for each of your job areas. That could be a way that you really focus on the key language you want to be included in your profile headline. So I'm going to, that's my homework. My homework is to find a way to showcase my strengths and my personality. But if you continue to see just Director Webster University in there, please do not shame me for that, because we have a creativity department recently. But you've given me some energy. I believe
I
we
will
have,
say,
yeah, Lisa,
I
we
will
got
say that, yeah, creating your headline is a skill in itself. That is an area I also struggle in. And just to top what Madison said, also make sure it's searchable. You want, if some employer is typing something in, that whatever you're saying pops up, right? Your profile pops up. So make it creative, make, ditto what Madison said, but also make it searchable.
Yeah, and I think when we look at that stopping point, when we are going through somebody's, let's say we're searching for Webster University, current students or alumni in Washington, D.C. Well, what's going to cause me to click on somebody's profile? Maybe I'm looking for graduates of the MBA program, or those who have graduated from the MBA program, and I'm considering that new program. I want to learn maybe what kinds of roles that they currently have. What's going to cause me to maybe stop and pause and see what kinds of experiences those individuals have, and a headline, a creative headline in that is a good way to possibly get some of that attention. Now, I'm going to pause for a second because we had a couple questions come in, and I, want to give our panelists an opportunity to chime in on what they may be able to do, and I'll also provide some perspective as well. One question came in regarding, what if you have more academic related experience versus industry or work related experience to showcase to an audience? How would you present that? And one thing that I wanted to hit on to really reinforce some of those academic experiences, in LinkedIn, in the education section of your LinkedIn profile, you can include links, not links, coursework that you have completed, which are searchable fields for employers. Those academic areas of coursework can be really important to your overall academic skills that you bring to a potential hiring process. You can also link any co-curricular activities to your education experiences so that your profile is communicating what additional activities you had been working through while you've been completing your degree relate to your professional interests. So that's another opportunity. And also media attachments to your LinkedIn. Each of your LinkedIn areas could have media attachments. Maybe there is a writing sample or a presentation that you gave or a collaborative project that you worked on that demonstrates your team working approach to problem solving and critical thinking. So there's some really great ways that you can use LinkedIn for that, but a personal website can also include some more detailed areas of those academic accolades that I think would be really important to showcase as experience. What's your take on that, Madison?
Yeah, so I was in the same boat where my LinkedIn profile was more academic and it was only my accomplishments. And I always said that I turned into a fridge mom. So any A I got, any paper I did, any conference that I spoke at, any research interest that I have, best believe it was listed on there. And as silly as it sounds, and it's going back to that custom website that Lisa was saying, is that you can make yourself look amazing on the internet. And I would like to say that Webster University has a wonderful photography studio, and they have wonderful photography students to get a nice headshot, a nice little bio of all your academic interests. Like I said, you can make yourself look amazing, and you go on your LinkedIn, and they have all these academic accolades in their classes, and they have their own personal website. You're impressive, because students don't go that far, right? So you're already sticking out, and you already seem organized. So that would be my main thing, is almost I don't want you to think too much about it, in the fact that, oh, I only have this, I've only done these classes, they're gonna see through me, they're gonna blah 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 blah. Well, if you're nervous, then yeah, they are gonna see through you. But if you post the things that you're proud of, the papers, the presentations, that's all they're gonna see, is that you're a student, you work hard, you're passionate about what you're studying, and that's what's gonna shine through.
Yeah, and I like how you framed that to anybody who's still in process of completing like a graduate degree. Maybe they've already earned a degree or a credential, and they're continuing their ed, and they want to showcase some of those experiences so that, you know, future employers learn more about how they've been applying their skills, and maybe what they're interested in, so that if they are trying to connect with to potentially promote an opportunity, it may be aligned to those interests that they've been communicating through their LinkedIn profile. Now, one of the additional questions that just came in, we're getting some wheels turning. So if you all have questions, just keep them coming in, especially if you want us to reinforce some additional information that's presented on your screen. If you've graduated with a degree with honors, should this be included on LinkedIn? Well, let me tell you this. You have the opportunity to include whatever you want to include on LinkedIn. Now, at the master's level, related experience to your coursework, application of your coursework in experiential learning or in a job setting is looked at more highly by recruiters or potential hiring officials than you know, a very high GPA. For bachelor level graduates, the GPA can infer a lot of strengths academically and skills that you brought as a student. So for instance, if you have graduated with a 3.5 or higher, that may infer that you have great time management skills, that you're able to really stay organized. You've been able to articulate all of your assignments through both written and oral communication skills. There's a lot of really natural inferences that will be promoted when you communicate any sort of honors and those kinds of achievements. Lisa, I remember when you were a two-time student at Webster University, two-time graduate of Webster University, you had a lot of wonderful accomplishments. How have those accomplishments been promoted as part of your personal brand?
Yes, so I would promote it, of course, as a post, and I would share, you know, the story behind it, what happened, along with the picture, as well as posting it on one of the elements you can pre-fill for your profile. So yeah, I just, yeah, go
Yeah, and
ahead.
I noticed when I was reviewing your LinkedIn profile, Lisa, that there were some really cool descriptors that you lifted, probably just from the website, because those descriptors will let your audience know, like, what was the criteria for this recognition? Like, I believe it was
Exactly.
the Walker Award you had received. What were the requirements for consideration, and your nominator? What was that? Um, what were those considerations? And I think those can really resonate with your audience, especially when you are being recognized academically or for your contribution to the university or your employer. If you have received recognitions to your employer, these are wonderful to include on your LinkedIn profile and any other ways that you can promote those as part of your personal brand, I highly recommend that.
Yes.
Okay, another question came in. I just want to make sure that I'm getting to all of these questions. For career shifters, any branding recommendations as somebody who may be transitioning from a long career in one area and to a different industry? Well, one thing that I want to say is that the career shifters, especially those who are military affiliated and veterans, thank you for your service. There's a resource from ONET Online, which gives you a military occupational code and translating that to different industries and how you can really focus on some of the key skills and then the language and how to communicate that in a transferable manner through your digital profiles. So that's ONET Online, and I'll put that in the chat box so that you can look up those areas of occupation and how it translates to civilian work. But other ways that you can focus on promoting yourself to an audience as a career shifter. Now, Lisa and Madison, you're still in your first careers. I'm a career shifter, but I shifted from K-12 education to higher education. One of the things that I have to say is it required a lot of work and a lot of networking. And part of that transition was having a firm understanding of who I was and who I wanted to be, what was my ultimate goal, and how I was able to articulate that really had to be carefully crafted. And it took a while. It took over a year for me to successfully transfer into a completely new area for myself. So when you're looking at branding and branding yourself as a career shifter, think of your areas of skill and how that skill is transferable to your future occupation or the type of goal that you're looking for. So that way, if you have any networking connections that can be helpful as part of that transition, they're going to be on the lookout for what those opportunities are and connect those opportunities to you. I've also learned that if sometimes continuing education is involved in a career shift, that may be something that you want to invest in. For myself, I had to get an additional graduate degree, and I earned that graduate degree at Webster actually, and their career services, which now I'm the director of, was helpful in getting me to where I'm at today. So I think just really understanding that there may be additional skill areas, technical skill areas, knowledge that you may need to develop, and that may involve continuing education. Just kind of explore what those options are. Lisa, do you have any perspective on that as somebody who went on to get their graduate degree?
I think you summed it up pretty well, John. I do. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that really understanding how you market yourself to your intended audience is going to just take a lot of work, but knowing what your skills are and how they're transferable will really help you in promoting that to your audience. Madison, do you have any perspective on that?
As far as, especially when you, I don't want to say you jump ship, but you just completely switch. I mean, John, what you said is networking, and that's a huge thing. And actually, even speaking with my clients during this time, is that they have to have an industry shift, right? Because they just, employment ended, and a lot of them have an industry shift. And the first thing I tell them is, okay, who do you know in that industry? If you go through all of your connections or whatever, if you're coming from one example, she's coming from pharmaceuticals and then she's going in graphic design. Huge. You're not really going to find them at the same party. So first thing she did is she went on LinkedIn and graphic designers that she was already second connections with, connect. And then when she connected, she sent a message to them saying, I'm getting into this industry, basically help me. And you'll be surprised how much that goes. And then also just reiterating what you said of just continuing education, showing people, yes, I'm making this shift, but I'm not doing it haphazardly. I'm doing my research. I'm developing as a person professionally and personally, and I will do to what I need to do to succeed. So as long as you're showing that, I would, like Lisa said, ditto John.
Yeah, and I think when you focus on those skills and how you're able to articulate them and network, how you can expand your contact network will also elevate your profile when you are looking at opportunities outside of where you spent the majority of your career and you're shifting into a completely new area. So confidence, as you said, Madison, too, goes a lot into that, and knowing who you are and being confident in that is so important. And I think when you look at today's job market, and as jobs are slowly beginning to come back, and industries are, going to see opportunities posted throughout the year, and onward, we're going to see more opportunities for you to kind of expand where you want to be focusing your job search on. Well, we're wrapping up today's conversation, and I appreciate all of the Webster University affiliated community members who were a part of today's conversation. I'm also very happy that I can have supportive colleagues, Lisa Camp, Madison Smith, and others who have been able to contribute their perspective on personal branding and how valuable it is when you're putting yourself out there online to the world. We want those to interact with us. We want to be reputable for our professional areas. We want to be known as subject matter experts, and I think that your perspective, Lisa and Madison, was definitely valuable in the learning for today. So thank you so much for participating.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. This was fun.
I want to remind anybody that was participating today and is interested that the slide deck for today's conversation is located in the handout section. So you can download that slide deck if you'd like. You can also go back to webster.careers, where you may have found information for today's webinar, and see upcoming broadcasts that will be provided by the Career Planning and Development Center and Alumni Programs at Webster University. I want to thank again all of our participants and hope that you all have a great rest of your work week. Thank you.